The following is a hockey podcast out of Vancouver and Surrey, British Columbia. It'll only consist of a lot of puck talk and even more BS, or in actual words, banter and satire. Enjoy, and as always, go Canucks go.
So, Conor Garland, you want out of Vancouver, eh? Well, Patrick Allvin said he wants a defenseman in return and $1 to $2 million of cap space, according to reports. So who fits that bill? We're going to tell you next here on Locked On Canucks.
You're Locked On Canucks, your daily podcast on the Vancouver Canucks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, welcome to another episode of Locked On Canucks. My name is Trevor Beggs, your co-host here on Locked On Canucks, and also a part-time credentialed media member for Daily Hive Vancouver. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. And before we dive into today's episode, we got to thank you. Yes, you. Yeah, I'm talking to you. For listening to Locked On Canucks. It's your team every day, your Canucks every day. Make sure you go subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Now, the Canucks, the good vibes are in the air, started the season strong, but despite that, there's a guy who wants to leave. He wants to lead this unbeaten team, and his name is Conor Garland. We're going to talk about some potential trade targets in return for Conor Garland on today's episode of Locked On Canucks. Also going to get into some of Tochet's comments from practice. I pinpointed a few bullet points from his 14-minute media availability after practice, a bit long for an after-practice press conference, and also, of course, best part of the show, saving it for last, comment quarter. But one of my favorite parts of the show is saying hello to Kyle Bhawan. What's going on, brother?
What's up? What's up? How's it going, people? An early episode of Locked On Canucks for the people because, hey, it's your Canucks every day, and the Canucks play at 3 o'clock. That's different. But we live in the dream, okay? I'm at the studios, the Don't Doze Art Lab. I'm able to watch the game, super blessed, and even more blessed to, again, do this. We'll get to Comment Corner, like Trevor said. At the end of the episode, and this comment, it pissed me off. This person was lying. And again, we'll get to that in 20 minutes. Let's talk about Conor Garland first, allegedly wanting out. Before actually we get to that, I was actually going to mention this. Trevor, you talked about how I keep bringing up the meatloaf and you. Well, bro, you've never invited me over to eat meatloaf, and you've known me for almost like over a decade, and I keep mentioning how I've never had meatloaf in my life, and again, you've never invited me over, and then I made the assumption last week that your wife is just horrible at cooking meatloaf, and that's why you never invite me over, because you don't want me to judge your wife since you love your wife so much. So,
okay,
yeah.
Well, let me clear the air on two things. First and foremost, I do most of the cooking in my house, okay? Husband of the year, good guy Beggsy. I'm the chef of the household, man. So it's my meatloaf you're talking about, man. I'm talking about my meatloaf.
Let's go! Never disrespect
second,
meat again, bro. Feed me your meat, okay? Feed me your meat.
Jeez, man. Oh, you're a sick individual.
What do you mean?
And then second overall, just come on. It's a long hockey season. NFL is here, man. Just come over sometime this fall, man. We'll catch some Canucks. We'll catch some NFL.
I am not coming over unless you tell me there's meatloaf there so I can break my meatloaf virginity, okay? Anyways, Conor Garland wants out. We heard this a week and a half ago. And even though the Canucks are 2-0, I feel as if that's not enough for him to want to stay, because I think he's played over 11 minutes combined in both games. I did the math wrong, but I don't think I'm that far off. And I know there's been a lot of penalties being played against the Oilers and blah, blah, blah. Special teams has played a huge part in both games. And yeah, that's going to reduce a guy like Conor Garland and his ice time. So yeah, I don't think anything's changed. He wants out. We need a defenseman in return. I wonder who the options are. And we also have to do this the right way. But before I say all that, I want you to dive into the types of acquisitions we can get for Conor Garland.
Yeah, so really what I looked at here was, based on the report from Elliot Friedman, which stated that the Canucks in a trade for Conor Garland would like a defenseman in return and would like to clear $1 to $2 million of cap space. Now that limits, that takes a whole bunch of teams out of the running. So according to Cap Friendly, a shout out to the great team at Cap Friendly, there are 12 teams in the NHL right now with over $1 million of cap space. So 20 teams have less than $1 million of cap space, which is pretty crazy. So I only looked at these 12 teams for potentially acquiring Conor Garland. Of those 12 teams, only 4 of them made the playoffs last season. Those were New Jersey, Carolina, Seattle, and Winnipeg. So of those 12 teams, I kind of combed through the rosters to see, which defenseman could be traded for Conor Garland to give that Canucks an additional $1 to $2 million in cap space. So I'm going to give you the 3 names that stood out most to me, and then maybe if we have time, I'll rip through some of the other names. First and foremost, let's go. And all of these guys have been in trade rumors, okay? So there's some smoke there. I don't know if there's enough fire for a trade to potentially happen, but I'll start with the Carolina Hurricanes and Brett Pesce, okay? Brett Pesce making a shade over $4 million. So Conor Garland at 4.95. That would give the Canucks their roughly $1 million in cap space. Now, Brett Pesce being a top 4 defenseman, a right shot defenseman, the Canucks are probably going to add an additional sweetener to the pot if they want to make this trade happen. Now, Carolina traditionally has been a team that defends well, but probably lacks a bit of a scoring punch. So in that regard, this trade can make some sense. This season has been the other way around, although I think it's more goaltending. Carolina, again, has been scoring early on, but they've let in a lot of goals, just losing to the Anaheim Ducks 6-3. So, Kyle, let's say it's Garland and like a second round pick for Brett Pesce. Is that a trade you'd be interested in?
For 1 year? Like, I don't know. They'd have to sign Pesce right after the end of the season.
I don't necessarily see it that way. It could be a rental, right? You're trying to clear the cap space. So
True.
I'm not even sure Carolina would do that, to be honest.
I don't think
they would do it.
I don't think Carolina would do it because they're essentially all in this season, and they need to be. They need to ice their best lineup. And if
they also have a very deep defense, though.
But I feel like if they're gonna take a chance on moving one of the guys, they want more stability in the forward that they're getting in return. Like Conor Garland, he's good at 5-on-5, but really hasn't proven to be super dynamic. And I think if you're risking removing a top 4 D-man away from your team that's contending for a Stanley Cup, that's the only type of forward you're acquiring. Or one that's really good two-way and can bring a certain level of physicality and intimidation into his game. But that's not really Conor Garland. So I don't see this one working out at all. I'll also add too, when I hear a name like Brett Pesce, that excites me too. You talk about, again, how we could even use him as a rental. This season matters a lot. Let's get Pettersson excited. Let's get his pen wet so he can, sign that deal. You get what I'm saying? So, moves like this could theoretically, even though it doesn't make a lot of sense, could still make sense for the Canucks to, again, go into the rental market and clear out some cap space. But I feel as if for things like that to happen, Garland has to play a little bit more, and the Canucks need to keep him with Pettersson so he can pad the stats and look good.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Even though he's on the top line with Pettersson, Garland has averaged less ice time than any other Canuck aside from Jack Studnicka, who played under 8 minutes. But he is the lowest forward, lowest Canuck in ice time over the first 2 games of the season, which is crazy. We'll table Brett Pesce. I'll go to number 2, Dante Fabro of the Nashville Predators. Now, there might be a bit more smoke here because the Predators reportedly have been interested in Conor Garland. They're a team that could use a scoring punch. Dante Fabro is a guy who has been in trade rumors, especially around last year's deadline, ended up re-signing kind of a 1-year show-me deal at $2.5 million. So the Predators have the cap space to make this trade happen. The Canucks would clear over $2 million in cap space if they don't retain any salary. And they bring in a guy in Dante Fabro who can play the right side. Again, this might be a deal where do the Canucks have to add something additional to the pot based on salary? I would probably think so. But, I think they're also in a position where they don't have to trade Conor Garland either. They don't have to add a sweetener with the caveat that, if this defense starts to crumble, there might be a bit more pressure. But through 2 games, it's or even the first few games of the season, let's say, it's not as pressing right now.
Yeah. And I mean, the whole adding a sweetener / I was even hearing people say the Canucks may have to retain a little bit of cap on the contract. It just hurts my soul. I feel as if the Canucks have to do their best job. And I know Alvin and Rutherford weren't part of the trade, but they have to do their best job to make sure they can get something in return for Garland without hurting themselves even more because of how detrimental that OEL trade was. So it's either get the most out of Garland or make sure you get the most out of the player that you get in exchange for Garland without having to, again, throw in another pick, retain salary. I don't want any of that noise. Be patient here. I think Alvin talks about that too. He's in no rush. He's in no rush. He's going to wait. And I think he's able to play that card of not being in a rush / having to, be concerned so much about the cap. If Garland, again, is playing better hockey with Pettersson and padding those stats. It allows more negotiation to happen over the phone and more patience, and ultimately not having to sweeten up a whole bunch of deals. Now, Dante Fabro, we got to add this every time we talk about one of these guys, okay? A BC Bud. Those guys matter. I think I'd be interested in that if it was a 1-for-1 type of thing. I'm not really comfortable throwing in a second round pick for somebody who's unproven on top of a guy that was a big part of such a dangerous deal for the Vancouver Canucks. It kind of scares me,
Yeah, I agree. And I think, the Canucks bargaining point is, look, Conor Garland is a proven top 6 player who, even though he's, I don't want to call him overpaid here, but he's a luxury this team doesn't need. But I think that contract is fair, especially if he plays in a top 6 role and is given the ice time to succeed. So again, I don't love the idea of attaching Swedish to that. And again, you're acquiring a guy in Fabro who, even though he plays, right shot defenseman, is a bit unproven himself at 25 years old. So it could be an interesting kind of change of scenery 1-for-1 deal if the Predators are interested. Let me rip through. I'll list the one other name, and this one's already been in rumors this week, but it's Andrew Peeke in Columbus. $2.75 million cap hit. Columbus is reportedly trying to get rid of a blue liner. We touched on this in other episodes. I don't want to go too in depth here. I have a hard time seeing the fit here, just because Columbus already has a couple other small wingers on their roster. And they're not going to be competitive anyway, so why would they want Garland?
Sucks. This guy sucks, supposedly, man.
Yeah, the analytics aren't so good, although, again, playing for a pretty bad Blue Jackets team. Kyle, let me just rip through my other names here. Those are kind of my top 3 candidates, but I'll rip through the other names here before we get to break. Colin Miller with the New Jersey Devils, making $1.85 million. Not even playing right now, but he's 30 years old, right shot defenseman. Because of the salary differential, $1.85 million to $4.95 for Garland. I think the Devils would either have to add a player or a piece, or the Canucks would have to retain. I'd be interested in someone like Nathan Bastian being included in this trade. 4th line, big-bodied winger. I also included John Marino here. Now, I don't think the Devils are going to be willing to part with John Marino. But that being said, John Marino, he's only averaging about 18 minutes of ice time through the first couple of games, and the Devils are loaded on defense. So maybe, just maybe, John Marino could be part of New Jersey, although I wouldn't put the odds super high. Brendan Dillon, Surrey, BC native. This is my favorite target, because shout out to Surrey. Brendan Dillon, the Winnipeg Jets, making $3.9 million. Again, the Jets reportedly are interested in Garland as well. The only issue with Dillon is he plays the left side, does have some experience playing the right side, but as we know, Tocchet doesn't really love playing guys on their offside. And Brendan Dillon's a bit like Carson Soucy, right? Big body, good on a third pair, not so good in a top 4 role. 2 more names. Will Borgen with Seattle. Again, be a little weird for Soucy and Borgen, who played on a pairing in Seattle, to be paired together in Vancouver. But Borgen's a younger defenseman, throws the body a lot, makes $2.7 million. And finally, Ilya Lyubushkin with the Anaheim Ducks. I think this would be more of a cap dump for Vancouver. Again, Lyubushkin can play the right side. He's physical. Again, making $2.75 million. Anaheim's got oodles of cap room, and maybe they want a guy like Garland who's got some term at a reasonable contract as part of the rebuild. So I know I ripped off a bunch there, but before we cut to break, Kyle, any of those names stand out to you?
I like the name Lyubushkin. That's a cool name. And obviously like the John Marinos, but I don't necessarily see that happening unless, again, Garland goes on a run here. Yo, just the whole notion of trading Garland. I know it sounds kind of dark and surprising, and we're only 2 games into the season, and I know we have to focus on the 80 games ahead of us, and it's, again, a little crazy to talk about this, but they got to make sure that if they do trade Garland, they don't become a worse hockey team.
But I think that's why they're targeting a defenseman.
Yeah, and I also understand, because like Mikheyev is coming back, and just by seeing the first 2 games this season, you can kind of see like, okay, I think we'll be fine if Garland is moved, But if they're going to move him, get a player in return that's going to actually provide impact on the back end and help out. This all being said, it's really interesting to see how this team may be doing this on top of losing Myers at the end of the season, which will happen. / if they do retain him, like it'll be for like $1 million, because Tyler Myers was horrible on Saturday. Let's be honest. He just straight up. So this Canucks team is going to have a lot of cap room, quote unquote, a lot, OEL on the books for a little bit down the road, and even more so down the road. And I just feel as if they're trying to maneuver in a way where they can, even though they drafted Tom Willander last year, it's like acquire another top 4 defenseman. And it's going to be really interesting to see. Straight up, man. Straight up.
Straight up. Well, that's it for my trade targets. The other thing I want to mention too about, making this team better, I think if they were to do something like a Garland for Lyubushkin, obviously they're getting the lesser player, but I think cap space is getting a couple $1 million in cap space would be a big win for this team as well. Speaking of big wins, I got to tell you, I get a big win every time I use Game Time, okay? Because sometimes I get stressed out trying to buy tickets at the last minute. That was until I discovered Game Time, baby. Game Time, they got my back. I get these emails from Nicole at Game Time on a weekly basis, and she's always teasing me with concerts and events in my area. Not only are those emails a tease, but Game Time also offers me flash deals on last-minute tickets. What's even better than that is that Game Time has a lowest price guarantee along with event protection cancellation. What's not to like about that? Now I got no choice but to get off my rear end and go check out a local show on a Friday night or even a Saturday. Whatever day of the week you're going to go see something, make sure you snag your tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. And you know what? I wouldn't be able to go check out a show on a Friday night unless I had my AG1 in the morning, baby. Newborn life, having the 2 kids, it has me short on sleep. It's harder to work out and eat healthy like I used to back in my 20s. That's why I have a hard time living without my AG1 in the morning. Since I've been drinking AG1, I've noticed an overall feeling of sustained energy, support for my mental clarity, and I got more focus. And I need that focus to bring you the goods here on Locked On Canucks. AG1, they use a science-driven formulation of vitamins, probiotics, and whole food source nutrients. That's science, baby. And Kyle, you and I, we're now 30 years old, and I know we could use a product like AG1 to keep us feeling like we're only 29. So if a comprehensive solution is what you need from your supplement routine, then try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase. Go to drinkag1.com/NHL Network. That's drinkag1.com/NHL Network. Go check it out.
Trevor loves that vitamin D. Okay, you're back on Locked On Canucks. My name Kyle Bhawan. That is Trevor Beggs. Hit the like button and subscribe if you did enjoy today's episode. If you didn't, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. You don't have to do it. Don't lie to yourself. Lying to yourself is, a huge reason why the world is not a happier place. It's just the truth. It really is. Shout out to all the new subscribers who are tuning in, and shout out to the OGs, man. Harpoon, Callum, Viper's Whip.
Callum. There's 2 L's, man.
Dude, I didn't start reading till I was 23. Relax. Don't bully me. Japan, you know what I'm saying? Matt, the OGs, man, getting invited to the wedding down the road. Way down the road. That wedding, that marriage. You know what's going to be a big part of that marriage? And I think it's a part of your marriage too, okay? Accountability, right? Accountability is a huge thing. And I think we saw a lot of accountability from Rick Tocchet. Yesterday after practice? Pretty surprising, I'm not going to lie, because I think over here, and we heard it in the media. I don't know if you heard it too. Did you hear a little bit of too much optimism, if that makes sense? A little bit of too much optimism after Saturday's win. Did you hear that? Because I heard that.
From the fans or from Tocchet?
No, just from like other podcasts, other shows. Like I feel like the Canucks.
This is the show Locked On Canucks, your team every day, that suggested that Elias Pettersson could be better than Connor McDavid for 1 year. But I did think Tocchet kind of quenched that notion. I mean, we'll get to it. I made some notes on Tocchet's press conference, and yeah, it wasn't all positive. That's for sure.
Boom. Let's get to those notes here on Locked On Canucks. Yes, Trevor's notes brought to you by Kyle. Okay, first note has to be the sexiest note on this bulletin board, okay? Tocchet tells the players that you have to earn your ice time, which is the truth. And again, this comes after a second straight win against one of the favorites in the Western Conference, and this is the energy the coach is given. And I'm not surprised because he had the closest view to the game, and it was pretty obvious that the Canucks were getting outworked for 45% of the game. No, did I say 45% of the game? I meant to say 85% of the game. So I'm happy that Taka said this because I think in like past years we didn't really have this. Maybe a little bit with Green, but like with Boudreaux and stuff, I feel as if when these things were happening, because we played a lot of games like we did on Saturday with Boudreaux as the coach, and Demko would just bail us out. There would be again Boudreaux in front of the media being asked about the style of play and how we got outworked, and he would just be like, "You know what? It's all good. We won the game." And at the end of the day, sure, you can get bailed out by your goaltender, but you want to like have that in your back pocket, but you also want to have, strong work ethic and being able to, dictate most of the game in your pocket as well. And you can't just lean on one of the things because one of the things is is too close to luck. You don't want to like have one of your ways to win the game, like the number one thing, be again associated with luck. I always say this because in sports, like all these people dream, all these people work hard, they daydream about winning. They're trying to manifest, right? I don't think in sports or professional sports you can't manifest wins. You have to manufacture wins. It's the only way. And the Canucks, again, 2 games in, I'm not super worried. I'm just again don't want us to be like super celebratory over Saturday's performance.
Yeah, and talking about guys who may not have earned their ice time, you can look at the ice time to see who you might be talking about. Like you mentioned, Conor Garland, under 10 minutes average ice time in the first 2 games. Andre Kuzmenko, under 15 minutes of average ice time over the first 2 games. Anthony Beauvillier, really in a bottom 6 role. He's averaged 14.27 over the first 2 games. So those are the kind of guys I've looked at for guys who could potentially step up. And I'll throw in Nils Höglander into the equation as well, averaging 10.34 over the first 2 games. But I think Höglander's a bit different because I thought he played pretty well against Edmonton. I thought he produced. I think there's maybe some little things that Tocchet might not have liked. But you want to look at the even strength point leaders on the Canucks. It's Brock Besser with 4, and then it's Nils Höglander in second with 3 even strength points over the first 2 games. No other Canuck has more than 3, aside from Höglander and Besser. So again, I think Höglander's done his part, but maybe the ice time doesn't really reflect that.
Yeah, and I think for those guys that you mentioned, again, Saturday's game was really, really penalty driven. Like not a lot of 5-on-5 play, especially in that second period. Like the numbers are going to be a little skewed, but when you have a chance to hit the ice 5-on-5, I'm talking to like Garland and Beauvillier and whatnot. I thought Beauvillier played better in the third period, but when you're on the ice, like your effort level has to be unmatched. Like you got to win puck battles. You got to really do your best to dictate plays and not float and just not get beat every time. Again, Edmonton, one of the favorites. They got players, they got drivers, they got people who work hard. They you know what? They're more experienced. They got good players, sprinkled throughout their lineup, and you're going to get beaten when you play that team on some occasions. But man, come on, you got it. It was, I'm not going to say an embarrassing effort, but it was kind of intimidating and a little scary. And I'm really, really curious to see how they do today against the Flyers. Like, I really don't want for them to lean on the fact that they're playing a Flyers team early in the season. It's in Philadelphia. Maybe there's a little bit of momentum there again early in the season. Like, don't rely on that. Just take it to them. Take it to them. If not for most of the game, at least down the middle. Don't let Saturday happen again. And I think Tocchet had that message for, again, those players that had less than 12 minutes of ice time. But I think it was a little bit of a message towards everyone, for real. That's just the way I kind of heard it.
Yeah. And I think, again, it's just not about complacency on this team. Like, it's a long season. The Canucks still got 80 games to go into the playoffs. And he did have praise for one guy, and that was Tyler Myers. Oh, man, everyone's favorite Canuck. Kyle, you talked about Tyler Myers not playing great on Saturday, which is true. Tocchet also mentioned at his media availability that Tyler Myers was leading the charge at practice. Not really the guy you'd expect, but maybe he was leading the charge just because he was sticking his neck out, his big long neck, and leading the way. But yeah, I mean, it's good that Tyler Myers, maybe he's turning into one of those good guys in the locker room, maybe a bit overpaid at $6 million, but what did you think? What did you think about that comment?
No, it's probably the truth. He's probably a great guy and a great veteran and doing the most during practices. And I just feel as if early in that game, Tyler Myers got exposed and he seems like one of those players, like he's momentous on both sides. So it's like, if he's like starting the game good, he's going to finish the game good. But if his first shift is horrible, there's a chance he might look like Lucas Spiza for the rest of the game. And
Spiza.
I feel as if that's what we got on Saturday. And the whole Tyler Myers thing, I'm kind of tired of Tyler Myers. I see like what he can do, but again, the lack of ability to kind of put it all together and ultimately be someone who can make mistakes too often is not really what this team needs. I'm all players who are calm, cool, collected. Okay, it's just the truth. It's just the truth. Okay. Next note from Trevor. It's a big one. I want to start off with one name on this injury report, and that's Teddy Blueger. I think it's kind of unfortunate, really unfortunate, that we don't get to see one of our best players in the preseason do his thing in the regular season. And I mean, it's a big reason why they traded for Lafferty. Now it makes a lot of sense, right? It wasn't a day-to-day thing ever. It seemed to be like a week-to-week thing. And are you concerned about this? Do you know, like, have you heard like how long he might be out for, or are we just again hearing that vague statement of a week-to-week, which could be 2 to 3 weeks or 4 to 6 weeks, right?
Yeah, and I think to touch on the concerning part of it, it was day-to-day when he initially blocked that shot. I think it was in the preseason game against Calgary. Was it the last preseason game? I think, anyways, after the game, it was day-to-day. Now it's week-to-week. So, yeah, a bit concerning there, but kind of back to the point, like Kyle McGee said astutely on one of our other shows, the reason they traded for Sam Lafferty wasn't just because they like the player, but because this season matters. The Canucks need to start off right. And lo and behold, we talked about players, maybe not earning their ice time. Talk says earn your ice time. Well, I think Sam Lafferty's earned his ice time, and he's played over 16 minutes so far this season in average ice time.
Wow.
So big minutes for Sam Lafferty there.
Mr. 5th round pick. What a target, man. And yeah, this season matters. They knew Blueger's injury and the extent of it. They weren't public about it, but they made the move. And I mean, you could argue like the Canucks aren't 2-0 without Sam Lafferty, which is really interesting. Okay. Anyways, Mikheyev coming back soon and Carson Soucy coming back soon. I don't really think we have to touch on that because we'll talk about it when it happens. Okay. For real. The last note, morning skates. He doesn't like them. I got to ask you a question. Okay. Cause it doesn't really relate to hockey, but like, when did you, and maybe it was just like a parent thing or like a work thing, but when did you become such a morning person? Because you are that guy. And have you become a person that actually loves mornings? Because in the beginning, I think when you made the transition to being one of those people, it was again forced because of work and hockey writing and whatnot. But now do you have like this different experience with life because of what time you wake up?
It's a great question, man. I think, before I moved in with my wife, I was like, I never went to bed before midnight. Now it's like, man, it's pretty rare that I'm in bed or I'm still up at midnight. So yeah, it has kind of been work related, to be honest, but I don't know. I'm indifferent about it. I wouldn't say I love mornings, but I'm used to it, man. I will say this, like I could write about the Canucks in the evening sometimes, but I'd rather wake up like in the early wee hours in the morning, get the coffee on, and write about hockey then before my kids wake up. So yeah, that's why I'm often up at 4-ish on a weekday.
That's beautiful, man. You live in the dream, bro. Journalism degree, Kwantlen Polytechnic University in Surrey, dude. Trevor, Chad Skelton, he would be proud, man. He would be really, really proud. Okay, another episode of Locked On Canucks, almost done. On the other side, we'll get the comment corner. Trevor Beggs, you got someone else to shout out, and man, oh man, game time in a couple of hours. Hockey season is back. I'm enjoying myself. Beggsy, take it away.
All right, I gotta let you know, you need to snap into NFL action this season with FanDuel. It's America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place just a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. Come, throw a little chirp your way here because your Green Bay Packers are playing Russell Wilson, Mr. Unlimited, and the Denver Broncos this week. Of course, they're favorites on the road because the Denver Broncos stink. But guess what? I think the Denver Broncos might just pull off the upset. According to FanDuel, they're 1.5-point dogs at home. I might be putting a little bit of money down on the Broncos. Take that, Jordan Love. Take that, Green Bay Packers. Whatever you're betting on NFL-wise, make sure you do it on the FanDuel app. It's so easy to use, and there's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, overs, unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Packers suck.
People, before we get back to the show, baby, I gotta tell you that new episodes of Locked On Canucks will be available wherever you stream podcasts and on YouTube at 4:20 p.m. for no reason at all, okay? New episodes every day at 4:20 p.m. Again, wherever you stream podcasts and on YouTube. Let's get back to the show. Okay, you're back on Locked On Canucks. My name Kyle Bhawan. That's Trevor Beggs. We got to remind you that people, after today's game, go check out our YouTube shorts. We're unveiling the short game show. Yes, the short game show with Beggsy and Bhawan. Get our immediate reactions from the game, from our hearts, into your eardrums. All right? That's how I like it. Yeah, that's the noise right there. Are you excited for today's game? Like, how's your stomach feeling? Like, 30-year-old man now. You're a family man. Do you still, I know you work in the industry too. Like, are you still a fan? Like a full 110%? These games matter. I'm rushing home. Blah blah blah. I'm a fan.
Well, that's I'm not rushing home because I'm at 3 p.m. and I work at 9 to 5. So I mean, I'm at the office, but yeah, I'll definitely be watching the game, man. Don't you worry about that.
So you have it on your phone, like you're working, and like on one of your screens, you have the game plan. Okay, I like it, man. Risking the family income, right? Getting in trouble just so you can fulfill your needs. You got to do it. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I map out my days so that I can throw the headphones on, I can watch the game, and be working on something that doesn't necessarily require my full attention.
There you go, man. You got to take care of yourself so you can take care of other people, and taking care of yourself does involve watching the Vancouver Canucks. We know you do enjoy watching the Vancouver Canucks, and you guys leave some comments on our videos, and we're gonna get to one of them that really pissed me off. Not pissed me off, it made me think a lot. Actually, it did piss me off. Okay, we're gonna get to it right now on Comment Corner.
Welcome to Comment Corner, powered by Paraphrasing.
This comment comes from Harpoon.
Kyle, are you high or just blatantly stupid? Pettersson and McDavid are already rivals.
Trevor, you're the hockey guy. You've been the hockey guy longer than I've been the hockey guy, right? I took a year off the game and change, right? So maybe I'm missing something, but this guy, Harpoon, is saying that Pettersson and McDavid are already rivals, and I'm reading this and I'm confused because I don't see it. Just because they play in the same conference, Vancouver, Edmonton, close, blah, 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 Canadian teams, blah, 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 the two best players on the team, blah, blah, blah. They're not rivals yet. Am I right on that? They're not rivals. There's no big moments, big games, big interactions. The Canucks have sucked. This ain't a rivalry yet.
The bar for rivalry is incredibly low, and I don't think it's just in Vancouver. I think it's across the NHL. Like, it's a bit more of a gentleman's game. Like, there's still physicality, there's still hits, but I just feel like there's not the same spiciness, the same animosity. So I feel like fans often will kind of conjure rivalries, make them up, if for lack of a better term, just because rivalries are fun. We want rivalries. We want that Pettersson-McDavid rivalry. But you're kind of making it up if you want to believe there's a Pettersson-McDavid rivalry. Like, you need some playoff hockey, you need some physicality, you need some a bit like a little brouhaha.
You need the Canucks to be good. You need the Canucks to be good. And
you need the Oilers to be. The Oilers have been good, but you need them to play a playoff series. That's kind of my take on it, and I really hope it happens.
Or you need like McDavid, who sometimes does lay the body too. I've seen it. You need McDavid. Actually, I'm gonna say this one first. You need Pettersson hitting McDavid, like crushing him, or vice versa, for it to like really be something. And I don't know. I feel like this not just the storyline is there, but the competitive nature between both these guys is there as well. And again, these two can be some of the biggest rivals in the game. And we're talking about two crazy hockey markets, and again, two intense players who want to be at the top of their game and be recognized for doing so as well. Speaking of two people who are at the top of their game, Beggsy and I, clearly not there yet, but we're trying, man. We're trying, bro. We just got here. It's year one. It's game 3. It is what it is, and we're trying our best for the people, and we really enjoy the experience and the interaction we have with you and you and you and you and you and you, and we hope you enjoyed another episode of Locked On Canucks. Remember, the short game show. After the game today, go view our YouTube shorts. We'll be there sooner than you think. Within the hour. Within the hour, we'll have a couple shorts there for you based on what we thought about the game. I hope you enjoy it, and we'll see you tomorrow. Beggsy, sign us out.
Yeah, special shout out to the everydayers, the occasional listeners, the new listeners, and especially the new subscribers. Welcome to the Locked On Canucks family, baby. And I also got to say, for more McDavid Pettersson talk, make sure you go check out yesterday's episode of Locked On Canucks, okay? We're ending this episode with a little dancing because the Canucks are currently unbeaten. And yeah, go check out that episode. McDavid, Pettersson. Can Pettersson be better than McDavid? Well, guess what? Nothing's better than you. Go listen to this episode of Locked On Canucks. Kyle and I got you covered throughout this road trip. I also want to talk a little Canucks prospects this week because there's a few of them who are tearing it up right now. But until then, I'm Trevor Beggs, and that guy's Kyle Bound, and you've been listening to Locked On Canucks.